My name is Orly Vincolado, and I will be your moderator for today's event. We are excited to have you here as we discuss essential updates and best practices for businesses to remain compliant in the Philippines in 2025. Before we begin, here are a few house rules to make sure that our session is productive and enjoyable. First, kindly change your Zoom name to name plus company name by clicking the participant's icon and hovering your cursor, hand over your name and choosing rename. Second, be respectful and an active listener so that we always stay on topic. And lastly, use emojis and the chat feature to react, ask questions or make comments. All questions will be answered during the Q&A portion. Thank you for your cooperation. So to kick things off, let me introduce who we are. So we are InCorp Philippines. InCorp Philippines is one of the leading corporate solutions providers in Asia. So we specialize in assisting businesses in setting up and expanding in the Philippines. So our services includes incorporation, secretarial and compliance, product registration, bookkeeping and payroll, taxation, immigration, HR and recruitment, risk assurance, and corporate recovery. And we are present in these countries: Singapore, Australia, Hong Kong, India, Indonesia, mainland China, Malaysia, Philippines, and Vietnam. So alongside with our corporate services, we also have InCorp Talent Solutions, our dedicated recruitment division that provides practical solutions to their clients regarding complex and unique requirements as well as other resources related matters. So here are our key selling points: relationship management, talent mapping, in-depth interview and reference check, and function-based expertise. So this is our event outline this afternoon. First, we will be discussing the corporate compliance, the SEC annual compliance, business permit renewal, to be followed by the tax compliance, the tax filing and deadlines. Next will be the HR compliance. What are the updates on the contribution rates, employee tax annualization, and DOLE compliance. Fourth will be the immigration compliance, the visa renewal and annual reporting, and then lastly, the recruitment and headhunting. Now, let's proceed to our expert speakers who will guide us through these important topics. So, our first speaker is Attorney Esther Lauren Perez, who will walk us through corporate compliance, specifically the SEC annual compliance and business permit renewal. So, Attorney Esther
Mr.
Lauren
Perez.
Perez is the Legal Compliance Director of InCorp Philippines. Her area of expertise includes legal compliance needs for business registration, product registration, corporate housekeeping, due diligence, and other related concerns. Her practice areas are incorporation, corporate compliance, and business advisory. She took up management at Ateneo de Manila University for her Juris Doctor at Far Eastern University Institute of Law and Master's in Business Administration at De La Salle University College of Business. She is also an IBP member since 2020. Ladies and gentlemen, let's all welcome Attorney Esther.
Thank you, Orly May, for the introduction, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for your time today. For my part, I'm just here to discuss two sets of critical compliance requirements: those set forth by the Securities and Exchange Commission, and those for business permit renewal with the local government units. So, the SEC, just a brief background, is a government agency primarily tasked to regulate corporations or other types of legal entities in the Philippines. It's also the agency that issues a certificate of incorporation or the certificate indicating that your company has been formed. The LGU, on the other hand, is the city or municipality where your business is registered. So both sets of requirements are essential for ensuring that your business operates legally, remains in good standing, and adheres to the regulations that help maintain smooth business operations. Let's start with the SEC compliance requirements. On your screen, I have listed the usual reportorial requirements with the SEC. We can go over them one by one. Okay. The first is under SEC Memorandum Circular Number 28, which requires legal entities or companies in the Philippines to create and or designate an email account address and cell phone number for transactions with the SEC. What's important to note here is that your Philippine number or the cell phone number must be a Philippine cell phone number. This is an important step in ensuring efficient and direct communication between your company and the SEC. In today's digital world, timely updates on filing deadlines, regulatory changes, and other important matters depend on having accurate and regularly monitored contact information. So ensure that your email address and cell phone number are up to date and regularly checked. The next is the general information sheet, which is quite common and most participants are probably aware of this as well. So the general information sheet is required to be filed annually. Okay, the annual filing is due within 30 days from the date of the annual stockholders or the members meeting. Stockholders if it's a for-profit corporation, and members meeting if it's a non-stock non-profit corporation. Or within 30 calendar days from the anniversary date of the issuance of your SEC license. This is for foreign corporations. So for example, the annual stockholders meeting of your company or the annual members meeting of your company is on January 1 of each year. You'll have on or before January 31st to submit your GIS to the SEC. And the same goes for foreign corporations. If the anniversary date of the issuance of the SEC license is January 1, you'll have until January 31st to submit the GIS to the SEC. Aside from the annual filings, all changes affecting the information stated in your general information sheet must be submitted within 30 calendar days after the occurrence or effectivity of such change. Briefly, the GIS is a snapshot of your company's basic information, such as the names of officers, directors, and stockholders of your company. So it's crucial that you file this accurately and on time, as it serves as a record of your company's structure for the year. Okay, next requirement is the financial statements. This is also required by the SEC to be submitted. What's important to note here is that it must be stamped first by the BIR, received by the BIR first before it is submitted to the SEC. And the annual financial statement is required within 120 days from the end of your financial year. So for example, for companies that follow the calendar year of January to December 31st, you'll have until the end of April to submit your financial statements to the SEC after it has been received by the BIR. Additional note is auditing will be required for your financial statements for domestic corporations if your total assets or total liabilities are at least 600,000. For foreign corporations, the threshold is 1 million, depending on the assigned capital. So if it's more than or at least 1 million for foreign corporations, you'll also be required to have an external auditor for your financial statements. And then lastly, this is not applicable to all entities, stock and transfer book or only for stock corporations. So this must be stamped within 30 days from the issuance of your certificate of incorporation. Usually, once the SEC issues the certificate or your license for registration, on the second page, it also lists down the requirements for reportorial requirements of your entity here in the Philippines. All right, now let's move on to the requirements for business permit renewal as required by the local government units in the Philippines. So the list on my screen is a general list of requirements in order to renew your business permit with the cities and municipalities in the Philippines. Some LGUs may require more or less requirements stated here. Like for example, Mandaluyong may not require a notarized lease contract, but Muntinlupa does. So it's also best to check with the particular LGU concerned. LGUs require business permit renewals to be done annually, usually on or before January 20 of each year, unless they grant an extension. Some LGUs grant extensions. Otherwise, a penalty may be imposed, and the penalty is usually a percentage of the business tax or a fixed late fee. Okay, So one by one, for your business permit renewal requirements, first you'll need your previous year's value-added tax or percentage tax filings or declarations. So whether your business is VAT registered or pays percentage tax, the LGU will need proof that your business has fulfilled its tax obligations. Ensure that you submit your BIR forms, so 2550 for VAT registered and 2551Q for percentage tax, depending on your tax status. The next is the financial statements from the previous year. So this will usually include your balance sheets, income statement, and cash flow statements. Next would be your business permit documents from the previous year, including your mayor's permit, barangay clearance, sanitary certificate, occupancy, and zoning certificate. A notarized lease agreement may also be required by the LGU. If your business is leasing a property, you'll need to provide the notarized lease agreement. This document confirms that your business has the legal right to operate in the rented space. So make sure that the lease agreement is current and notarized. Another requirement is the comprehensive general insurance policy. I understand that this is required by Taguig City. So certain businesses may also need to submit a CIGL or the Comprehensive General Insurance Policy. This policy ensures coverage against risks like property damage, theft, and liability. If this applies to your business, be sure that your policy is valid and properly covers the necessary areas. For renewal, you'll also be required to submit or pay the business permit fee. This is calculated usually as a fixed amount, depending on the gross sales or receipts from the previous year or a percentage of the previous year's gross sales or receipts. Okay, so in conclusion, whether it's complying with the SEC's requirements or ensuring that you've submitted the necessary business permit renewal documents with the LGU, staying organized and ahead of deadlines is key. Both sets of requirements are designed to ensure transparency, accountability, and compliance with the law. I hope this helped. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me later on or scan the QR code flashed on your screen. Thank you for your attention, and I wish you all a successful year ahead. Back to you, Orly.
Thank you, Attorney Esther, for the insightful discussion. I'm sure our attendees already know the important requirements needed for SEC reportorial and business permit renewal. So, moving on to our next speaker, Ms. Ira Gomez, who will talk about tax compliance, including tax filing and deadlines. So, Ms. Ira Gomez is the Associate Director for Financial and Tax Compliance of InCorp Philippines. She has a robust blend of expertise in Philippine tax compliance, comprehensive general bookkeeping, auditing, and business process optimization across diverse industries. Her practice areas are Philippine tax compliance and comprehensive general bookkeeping. She took up BS accountancy at the University of the East and is a certified public accountant since 2015. Ladies and gentlemen, let's all welcome Miss Ira Gomez.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Arlimi, for that introduction. Good- Today, I will be discussing you about the BIR year-end deadlines, including the deadlines for the books of accounts, annual information returns, and other reportorial requirements such as sworn declarations and also the 2025 annual income tax return deadlines. So for the books of accounts, the submission of bound loose leaf books of accounts and other required documents for companies using loose leaf books of accounts will be submitted or required to be submitted by the January 15, 2025. And for the fiscal year end, within 15 days from the time of the close of each fiscal year. However, due to the errors and that we have encountered in the BIR ORUS, RMC 006-2025 has been issued on January 16, 2025 to provide guidelines for the extension of registration for permanently bound loose leaf books of accounts to January 31, 2025. Okay. For the submission of soft copy of books of accounts and other required documents for companies registered under computerized accounting system, the initial deadline was January 30, 2025. However, due to the BIR errors, it was extended up to February 17, 2025. As for the fiscal year end companies, within 30 days from the close of each fiscal year. For the annual information returns, the BIR Form 1604C, or the Annual Information Return of Income Taxes Withheld on Compensation and Final Withholding Taxes, and the related alpha list should be submitted on January 31, 2025. For the BIR Form 1604F, or the Annual Information Return of Income Payments subjected to final withholding taxes and its related alpha list, should also be submitted in January 31, 2025. As for the BIR Form 1604E and its related alpha list, this should be submitted on March 3, 2025. Also, you can also check the RMC number 62-2023, since it announces the availability of BIR Form 1604C, F, and E, and 0620 in the BIR EFPS. For the other reportorial requirements, the submission of inventory list for year-end December 31, 2024 was on January 30, 2025. The submission of contract of lease and information on lessee, lessors, sublessors of commercial establishments, buildings, or spaces for tenants as of December 31, 2024 is on January 31, 2025. And for the filing of the request for confirmation is on April 30, 2025. For the fiscal year companies, the deadline shall not be later than the last day of the fourth month following the close of each taxable year. For the sworn declarations 2025, the submission of notarized sworn declaration of gross receipts or sales for the individuals less than or equal to 3 million and corporations less than or equal to 720,000 with certificate of registration by income recipients availing of lower EWT rate to withholding agents. The deadline is on January 15, 2025, or at least prior to the initial payment, while the submission of notarized sworn declaration of list of income recipients availing of lower EWT rate or tax exemption by withholding agents to the BIR is on January 31, 2025. For the 2025 annual income tax return deadline, for the BIR 1702 RT, or the regular tax rate, and the mixed income earners, and also the taxpayers with exempted according to the tax code for year end December 31, 2024, the submission is on April 15, 2025, together with the submission of the required attachments of filed ITR for the manual filers, while for the submission of the required attachments to filed ITR, EBIR, and EFPS filers, that's April 30, 2025. So for fiscal year companies, the deadline is within 15 days from the statutory date or date of filing of the ITR, whichever comes later. As for the 2025 annual income tax forms, for the EBIR form users or the manual filers, you can use the file using EBIR forms package version 7.9.4.2 and pay either in AAB or online payment channels. For the EFPS filers, use EBIR Forms package version 7.9.4.2 to fill out BIR Form 1702 MX version 2018 and 1702 EX version 2018. This is in accordance with the RMC number 50-2021. For 1702 RT, pay as usual, and 1702 MX, e-payment shall be made through 0605. Just quick reminders for the attachments to the annual ITR. So number one would be the filed annual income tax return, including the filing reference numbers for EFPS filers or the transaction receipt return receipt confirmation sent through email for EBIR filers. Also the proof of payment. Attached also the DVD-R or USB memory stick or other similar devices containing the soft copies of your BIR Form 2307, with notarized certification or PDF soft copies for EAFS uploading. Please also attach the validation report of electronically submitted SOUT and the amended return proof of for amended return, proof of tax payment and previously filed return should also be attached. Number six would be the certificate of income payments not subjected to withholding tax or the BIR form 2304 if applicable, and duly approved tax debit memo if applicable, proof of prior year's excess credit if there is, and the proof of foreign tax credit if applicable, also the proof of other tax payment or credit, and the certificate of entitlement of tax incentives for PEZA and BOI. Number 12 would be the audited financial statements, and as mentioned a while ago by Attorney Esther, uh, audited financial statements are required for the corporations and taxpayers that with 600,000 um, total assets or total liabilities or equity. And then the statement of management's responsibility for ITR and the BIR form number 1709 or the information return on transactions with the related party, if this is applicable with you. Okay. For the important reminders, for regular domestic corporations, the corporate income tax is still 20% or 25%, considering whether you will be um, depending on the company's total assets and net income for the taxable year. While for the foreign corporations, the CIT rate is at 25%. For the minimum corporate income tax, this is already reverted to 2% effective July 1, 2023. That's based on RMC number 69-2023. And then the submission of BIR Form 1709 and preparation of transfer pricing documentation. So for any questions, feel free to scan the QR code or email me at ira@incorp.ph, and or you can also lodge your questions regarding tax and general bookkeeping in the Q&A section of the webinar.
Thank you, Ms. Ira, for the detailed overview of BIR year-end deadlines. Your insights on tax compliance are greatly appreciated. Moving on, our third speaker, Mary Jane Luares, will cover HR compliance, highlighting updates on contribution rates, employee tax annualization, and DOLE compliance. So, Miss Mary Jane or May Luares is the Associate Director for HR Consulting and Payroll of InCorp Philippines. With extensive expertise in compensation taxes and labor regulations, May provides tailored payroll solutions designed to meet each organization's unique needs while ensuring full compliance with labor standards. Her practice areas are taxes on compensation and labor law compliance. She took up BS Psychology at Rizal Technological University, and she is also a certified payroll professional since 2015. Miss May, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Orly. Yeah, so this afternoon, although amongst all the list of compliances, payroll and HR is the most routinary yet quite complex, primarily because it's not just the government who can trigger the audit, but of course, our employees will be able to check immediately whether or not the company is compliant or not. So this afternoon, we'll be having some refresher to make sure that we're aligned with the regulation of the governments, primarily for SSS, PhilHealth, Pag-ibig, BIR, and DOLE. We'll be focusing our discussion on updates on their contribution rates, the DOLE compliance, and of course, the BIR annualization requirements. First and foremost, for PhilHealth contribution, for this year, there are no updates yet as to the contribution rate. So the contribution rate remains at 5% for this year, which is equally shared by the employee and the employer. So the maximum amount of monthly basic salary would be still at 100,000. And yeah, so the rate would be the same with last year, 2020. For HDMF, it's the same with PhilHealth. There are no updates yet as of this year, the maximum monthly salary credit as the basis of the deduction would be 10,000, and the percentage would be 2% of 10,000, which is 200 every month. For this year, the only update that we receive is from the Social Security system, wherein there is an increase of 5% for the contribution rate. So the total contribution rate for this year is 15%, which is 5% of it is covered by the employee, and 10% of it will be covered by the employer, which is wherein the total contribution rate would be 15%. The maximum salary credit has been increased as well to 35% from the 30,000 salary credit last year. Now, these contributions would only have impacts to some of the benefits. So for Social Security system, there are two types of benefits, so short-term and long-term benefits. So this increase would only impact the long-term benefits, which means that the short-term benefits such as the sickness, maternity, and unemployment benefit would remain at 36,000 for sickness, maternity benefit, maximum benefit is 70,000, and unemployment would be at 20,000 still. And the rest of the contribution, or the increase in the contribution, will be allocated to our mandatory provident fund, which we can only avail of upon the application of the final benefit, which is the retirement, permanent total disability, and death. Now, for the DOLI compliance, it is important that we were able to report our 13th month summary. This was due on January 15, 2025, which we usually report through this link. So www.reports.dole.gov.ph. If your company was not able to comply with this, this link is still available. So we may still need to report your 13th month list to make sure that in case of DOLE audits, you are be able to provide compliance with this requirement. And of course, on May 31, it is also a DOLE requirement to submit the annual establishment report on wages through this link. Now, for the BIR updates, primarily on the tax annualization, aside from the submission of the reportorial requirements, it is also important to ensure that the reports on the annualization is correct. So to make sure that we provide or submit accurate numbers to the BIR and to avoid any penalties in the future, it's important for us to conduct a year-end reconciliation. So 3 things. So number one, you can actually compare the total tax due as reflected to your payroll register and final pay versus the 1601C. That's one. And the number two, what you can also do is to prepare an itemized breakdown of your December tax component. So usually what we do, we tabulate January to November, and the difference of the amount will be the December tax, right? So it is not sufficient that you provide or you determine the amount of December, but it's also good to break down and identify what is the component of this December taxes, because most likely there might be you were not be able to identify or report some of the off-cycle payroll run, final pay runs, which you need to include on your December payroll to avoid any underpayment for the BIR 1601C. And last thing, you can actually compare the filed 1601C versus the alpha list schedule. So doing so, you make sure that your books is tied up with your alpha list schedule, and that to avoid any future BIR penalties in case of audit. There. So in terms of the submission of the BIR 2316, just a reminder. So number one, the BIR no longer accept manual or hard copies of the forms. It was actually the revenue regulation for this has been released in 2021, but it's just last year that the BIR strictly implemented that they are no longer accepting manually or printed copies of the form. So if you submit the 2316, make sure that it's being saved in a USB or in a DVD-R format. So this 2316 should be scanned and properly named under the specific naming convention of the BIR and saved to the USB or the VB or DVD-R. Upon submission, you make you may also make sure that this 2316 forms are also signed by the employees. So last year, it was also released by the government, by the BIR, that they are no longer accepting 2316 without the signed signature of the employees. Because during the pandemic, they accepted 2316 without the signature. But just last year, they are already requiring signature of the employees, but the e-signature or electronic signature are still accepted. Now, another option to file the BIR 2316 is to have it filed online through the electronic filing. So the BIR already accept filing via EAFS system. This EAFS system is available through the BIR app, BIR website. You may check the RMC 117-2021 or RMC 49-2020 for the specific guidelines for this. Another things to take note upon the submission of the 2316 is that you need to make sure that you have the transmittal form. So the transmittal form consists of the list of names of all the employees that is saved in the USB or the list of 2316 that is being submitted to the BIR. Another is that print a copy of the alpha list schedule as an attachment to the transmittal form. Print the e-submission confirmation email upon submission of the that file through via email. And then also you need to submit a copy of the BIR form 1601C, 1604C, plus the confirmation email. A notarized Annex F or the substituted filing declaration with the documentary stamp. So the documentary stamp, it is being purchased directly from the government or the BIR RDO. And then the notarized Annex C or sworn declaration, those both forms should be signed in wet ink. And then lastly, of course, if you're going to submit it using the DVD or CD, you make sure that it is properly labeled. So this is just a sample of the label as required by the BIR. In terms of the deadline, so it is already mentioned earlier by Ira, but for reiteration, the payment of the tax refund or overwithheld taxes should be paid to the employees last January 25. The submission of the BIR Form 1604C via EBIR, it should be submitted last January 31. The alpha list that file via e-submission at bir.gov.ph, which is being sent via email, it should be sent last January 31. Now, if you weren't able to submit those that I've mentioned, you can actually still submit those. However, that would be subject to a penalty of 1,000 per form. Now, submission of the BIR Form 2316 is due on February 28, and if ever you failed to you missed the deadline for this, as mentioned, the penalty for this is 1,000 per form. So if you have 1,000 employees, for example, so the penalty for that would be 1 million. So let's make sure that we'll be able to submit prior to the February 28 deadline. Now, this is just an additional update from the BIR. So just last week, January 30, the BIR provided an update on the list of the mini-me benefits for effective February 2025. So for now, the de minimis has been increased for clothing allowance from 6,000, it has been increased to 7,000. And for the achievement or loyalty award, it was converted to, so before the achievement or loyalty award can only be provided to the employee on a tangible personal material. But now the BIR also accept non-taxable loyalty achievement award if it's being paid through cash or gift certificate. And even still, via tangible materials, but the maximum amount or worth would be still at 10,000. There. So I hope this compliant list has been helpful. If you need assistance to those that I've mentioned, please feel free to scan the QR. You may send us an email so we can further discuss other potential help that we can provide you. Thank you. Back to you, Orly.
Thank you, Miss May. That was very informative, and we appreciate the clarity you brought to HR compliance. So, our next speaker, Miss Annalyn, will focus on immigration compliance. So Ms. Annalyn Kawinyan is the Immigration Services Director of InCorp Philippines. She specializes in assisting clients with their visa applications and immigration-related engagements with the Bureau of Immigration, Department of Labor and Employment, and other government agencies. She already has more than 12 years experience, and her practice areas includes immigration and visa services. She took up commercial science major in accountancy at Jose Rizal University. Ladies and gentlemen, let's all welcome Miss Annalyn.
Thank you for the introduction, Orly. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for attending our today's webinar. So from my end, I'll be discussing the annual reportorial requirements of the Bureau of Immigration for all registered foreign nationals residing in the Philippines. So first, let me discuss what the annual report means. So the annual report is a mandatory requirement that all registered foreign national must complete every year. So the deadline for compliance is set between January 1, 2025 and March 1, 2025. So why the Bureau of Immigration requires the annual report on a yearly basis? So to ensure that the Bureau of Immigration has the latest information regarding the immigration status, residence, and activities of the foreign nationals. It will also serve as a compliance check to confirm that the foreign national are still meeting the conditions of their visa of residency. Okay. Aside from this, it helps the Bureau of Immigration identify those who may have overstayed, violated immigration policies, or changed their legal status. Okay. So who are these registered foreign nationals required to do an annual report? So these are the 9G visa holders or foreign nationals employed in the Philippines under a pre-arranged employment visa, 13A visa holders or foreign spouses of Filipino citizens granted a permanent residency, a temporary resident visa or TRV holders, foreign nationals granted a temporary residency based on the specific conditions. So, and then the 90 3D traders visa holders or foreign business persons and investors from countries with an existing trade treaty with the Philippines. And then may mga permanent resident visa or PRV holders or foreign nationals granted a permanent residency under various immigration programs or a 13E visa holders or a former Philippine permanent residents who are returning to the country. Also, returning former natural-born Filipino citizens or 13G visa holders are also required to do the annual report. These are former Filipinos who have become foreign nationals and are returning to reside in the Philippines. And then also the student visa holders are required to process their annual report at the Bureau of Immigration. Okay, so what are the requirements for the annual report? So first, the reference number, which you can obtain through online registration link. It can be found in the immigration website. So after completing the registration, a reference number will be generated. So this number must be submitted as part of the annual report filing process. And then second requirement is the valid passport. It must be presented for verification of identity and immigration status. And then third requirement is the valid and updated ECRI card or the Alien Certificate of Registration Identity Card. This must be valid and updated. If expired, the foreign national must renew it before completing the annual report. Okay. The next requirement is the copy of the 2024 annual report receipt as proof of compliance with the Bureau of Immigration's annual reporting requirement for the previous year. And then also the 4 pieces 2x2 size photos with white background with no eyeglasses. Also, personal appearance is required. So the registered alien must appear in person at the Bureau of Immigration main office or any BI designated office for fingerprint and data capturing. But there are certain exemptions for personal appearance when processing the annual report at the Bureau of Immigration. And these apply to individuals below 14 years old or 60 years old and above, those who are mentally or physically incapacitated with a PWD ID, and a pregnant woman or individuals who are sick, provided they will submit a medical certificate from their physician or hospitals. So, where can you process the annual report? So, in Bureau of Immigration main office located in Intramuros, Manila. So, this is the primary office where most foreign national can process their annual report. Also in BI regional and extension offices. So, foreign nationals residing in other areas of the Philippines can visit any BI regional or extension office for the processing of the annual report. So these offices are located in various provinces, such as in Cebu, Davao, and other major cities. Okay, so how to apply or what is the process? So the annual report can be processed in 3 different ways, depending on the circumstances and preferences of the registered alien. So the first option is the in-person annual report. So this is the traditional method where foreign nationals personally appear at the Bureau of Immigration office to complete the report. So they will submit the required documents, pay the necessary fees, and fingerprints taken and undergo data capturing as part of the reporting process. And then second option is the mobile annual report. So the mobile annual report service is offered by the Bureau of Immigration for groups of at least 15 foreign nationals. So the BI will set up a mobile service unit to process the annual report at the specific locations. So making it more convenient for foreign nationals who cannot travel to BI office. So this service is ideal for companies or organizations with a significant number of foreign nationals who need to complete their annual report. And then the third option is the virtual annual report. So the virtual annual report allows the foreign nationals to complete their report online through a virtual platform. However, the foreign national must be physically present in the Philippines during the process to use this option. So this option is ideal for those who are unable to visit the BI office but still need to comply with the requirements while in the country. Okay, so these are the steps to process the annual report. So first, the registered alien needs to visit the Bureau of Immigration's online registration portal and then complete the online registration to obtain the reference number. So this number will be used to track your report during the process. And then choose your reporting method. So if it is in person, proceed to your preferred Bureau of Immigration office to complete your report. For mobile service, if you prefer the mobile service, make sure there are at least 15 foreign nationals to avail of this option. So the BI will arrange for a mobile unit to come to a designated locations. And then for virtual reporting, attend the Google Meet sessions scheduled by the BI. So this option is available for those who are physically present in the Philippines. And then the step 3 is present the required documents and obtain the payment order slip. Okay, bring the required documents like the passport, ACRI card, and copy of the 2024 annual report receipts, and so on and so forth. And then once the documents are verified, proceed with the fingerprint and data capturing process. Thereafter, you will receive a payment order slip that details the required fees for the annual report. And then the last step would be the settle the required fees. So for in-person or mobile service, pay the necessary fees at the designated BI office. And then for the virtual service, payment can be made using GCash, Paymaya, credit card, or land bank for convenience. And then step 5 is the obtain the official receipt. So after settling the payment, you will be given an official receipt as proof of your payment. So this receipt is essential for your records and confirms that your annual report has been processed successfully. Okay, so how much is the annual report? So the standard fee for the annual report is 300 pesos plus legal research fee amounting to 10 pesos. For foreign nationals who are exempt from personal appearance, like minors under 14, seniors over 60, sick individuals, or those using a virtual or mobile annual report options, it will incur an additional cost of 500 pesos for the non-appearance. If the mobile annual report service is scheduled on weekends, there will be an additional 1,000 pesos that will be charged for the convenience. Okay. So what about the expats who are leaving the country? So for foreign nationals who are departing the Philippines, they are required to complete the annual report before they leave the country. So they can fulfill these obligations at the airport before obtaining the exit clearance certificate. So I think this covers everything from my end. Okay. If you have any immigration related concerns, please scan the QR code displayed on our screen or email me at annalyn@incorp.ph.
Thank you, Miss Annalyn, for shedding light on this important topic. We value the insights you've shared on immigration compliance. Finally, we have Miss Leah, who will discuss recruitment and headhunting, covering recruitment trends, common salary ranges, and recruitment challenges and solutions. So, Miss Leah Suliman Galera is the recruitment um, and Executive Search Director of InCorp Talent Solutions. She is responsible for handling the day to day operations of the Recruitment and Executive Search Division. She already has more than 15 years of experience in the industry, and her practice areas includes talent acquisition, business development, and client management. She took up BA in Organizational Communication at De La Salle University, Manila. Ladies and gentlemen, let's all welcome Miss Leah.
Thank you so much for the introduction, Orly. So, for today, I will be discussing the different compliances that we need to adhere to when it comes to hiring in the Philippines. Certain tips when it comes to the different recruitment trends available for 2025 and onwards, as well as a couple of tips when it comes to best practices when it comes to hiring. So let's start off with compliance. So the first thing we need to remember whenever we're hiring talents in the Philippines is to, of course, to adhere to the legal and labor regulations of the Philippines. So it has to be like your guiding principle or your best friend to make sure that everything in your employment contracts adhere to the labor code of the Philippines, such as the compulsory contributions and benefits, the Anti-Sexual Harassment Act, Telecommunicating Act, Data Privacy Act, when it comes to minimum wage and overtime regulations, adhering to non-discrimination policies, as well as occupational health and safety. So these things, you can actually find them in the website of the Department of Labor. If you actually need assistance in terms of creating your employment contract, it's best advised to consult a lawyer to make sure that everything is being complied with, especially when it comes to the Department of Labor's minimum requirements. Also, when it comes to creating your employment contracts, you have to be very clear about certain things. Like, for example, the job title, the job description, and also the responsibilities that the individuals that you're hiring will have to comply with. Compensation, such as the basic salary, the different benefits you're providing, as well as the allowances that are covered, should be clearly stated as well in your employment contracts to avoid any confusion with regards to payroll. Also, it has to include the commencement date and the working hours. So we have to make sure that when it comes to the working hours, we are aware that based on the labor code, we are allowed 40 hours per week, and anything in excess of that would be considered as overtime. Also, it has to be clearly stated when it comes to the probationary period and when exactly they will be able to receive their regularization. So if in cases of any terminations or shortening of the probationary period, it has to be clearly stated in your employment contracts, as well as if they would need to actually adhere to a 30-day turnover period. So for the employment contracts, again, if you would need assistance, it's best to consult with a lawyer. to make sure that everything adheres with the Department of Labor's labor code. Now, for sourcing platforms, you also have to make sure that we're not just posting our job ads or our our company profiles anywhere. You have to make sure that first they are adhering to the current data privacy laws of the NPC. So also make sure that if you do engage with recruitment agencies, they are DOLE accredited or they actually have a valid license with the Department of Labor, which is the PIA license. Whenever we're conducting interviews, we also have to be sure that there are non-discriminatory questions and unbiased questions. It's actually best advised as well for your recruiters or for your HR personnel to train the other people that will be involved during the whole recruitment process. So if let's say you have like a hiring manager who hasn't done any interviews in the past or is actually adapting to like the old school type of doing interviews, it's best to actually train them and make sure that all questions will be safe, unbiased, and non-discriminatory. Also, when it comes to doing background checks, we have to make sure that the applicants are aware of the reason for the background checks, or if you can actually provide them with a data privacy clause during the application process, that would be best advised as well, since at least they are aware of the reasons why we're getting these information and why we're calling the references to conduct the background checks. And then also when it comes to the onboarding part, we also have to be sure that everything is covered by the Data Privacy Act. So when it comes to requesting for birth certificates, transcript of records, marriage license if it's needed or applicable, NBI or barangay clearances, and even their medical clearances, it all has to be covered by the data privacy law. Okay. So next is with regards to the different recruitment trends. So I'm actually here just to give you an idea of how you can adapt to the changing world when it comes to recruitment. So the first of which is recruitment automation and AI. We actually have to be very open when it comes to adapting to change and making sure that we are catering to the new generation. So don't be afraid with technology. You can actually use different automation platforms. It also helps your recruiters kind of remove any repetitive tasks, anything that can be more time consuming. So that can actually also assist your people to be able to track statuses of applications faster, provide you with data-driven facts, and also make data-driven decisions. It can also quickly filter different profiles coming in. So it would basically just, let's say, remove, 20-30% of the time being consumed with actually just getting the applications. Next is to actually apply a hybrid recruitment process. So using video conferencing such as Zoom or Google Meets or Microsoft Teams have been adapted by a lot of companies since the pandemic started. It also provides convenience not just for the candidates, but also for the clients. So just be clear with providing instructions with your candidates if they do attend the interviews to be professional when it comes to the attire, with their backgrounds, makeup, how they present themselves. So before the interview happens, just make sure that everything has been communicated properly to the attendees, not just the applicants, but also the hiring people that will be conducting the interviews. Next is to focus more on skills-based hiring. So what does it mean to do skills-based hiring? Gone are the days that we're actually focusing on the educational background or what school they came from or how many awards they were getting during their educational days. So now we actually have to prioritize the skills rather than that. So you have to incorporate in your job descriptions any particular skills that you're looking for in your candidates. Some great candidates may actually have accomplished a lot, even though their degree or their course from college is so much different. So you have to focus your interview questions on the skills that you actually need rather than focusing on the skills or the backgrounds that you don't necessarily need. Next is to do a passive, quote-unquote, aggressive approach, wherein we proactively target passive candidates. So how exactly do we do this without being or looking like we're kind of desperate already? So this is mainly how to proactively tap the passive market by using your company's brand to leverage different opportunities available. So let's say, for example, contacting past candidates that you have processed already, or meeting with people just for an exploratory meeting, not necessarily having to hire them on the spot. You can also send personalized invitations to these candidates with the complete details available. You have to communicate with them in a way that you're showcasing what's actually in it for them to work with you or to apply for your different job positions. So they may want to know some information that they didn't need in the past, but they may be open in the future. Also, you can leverage the use of social media, like doing networking, or probably contacting with like the alumni networks or online communities, your internal databases for referrals. So there's actually a lot of ways that you can use to be aggressive for the passive candidates that you have. Next is how to manage candidate expectations. So you actually have to provide them with an overview of your company's culture. Basically, using, let's say, success stories, or probably using your current employees, if they have, like, let's say, any particular stories, like, or like success stories that they can share via your social media page, or via LinkedIn, or via Facebook, whichever works, that reaches your target market. So how do you also manage their expectations? Again, you have to provide them with what's in it for them. So it's more of like a holistic experience for your employee, for your potential candidates. So it's really not just about leveraging your different salaries and benefits, but also what's your company about. Tell them your story. So the next is when it comes to employer branding versus the experience. So again, we have to still keep in mind that first impressions definitely last. So you have to ensure that the experience they're getting also corresponds to your brand. So don't oversell yourselves. Just be transparent to your employee or to your potential candidates. Engage with them consistently, respond to their queries, be proactive, show initiative with updates. So we've all been applicants before, and we don't really like the feeling when they kind of ghost us, or they don't respond to our queries. It's same with actually getting other, let's say, services, or if you're buying a car, or if you're buying a condo unit, whenever the service provider or the product seller is not responding, it's already a turnoff. So be proactive. You have to make sure that the candidate experience is number one in your list, since they are your potential workforce in the future. Next is that the Gen Z generation is now entering the workforce. So you have to adjust your recruitment strategies to accommodate their different preferences, especially when it comes to the use of technology and getting a fast turnaround response, or a fast turnaround time when it comes to processing. So provide them with clear information and instructions. And also, Gen Z has been really looking at the rapid growth and consistent feedback. So rapid growth meaning how exactly can they develop in the company, as well as the different feedback they would get. So again, be proactive when it comes to providing feedback. Next is becoming very diverse, showing equity and also inclusion. So again, going back to the interview questions, you have to implement a lot of unbiased hiring processes. So coming from your job descriptions, their interview questions, to the documents that you're requiring them to submit. So just be conscious with how you engage with these people. And then next is, how do you focus on retention and upskilling your team? So usually don't really have to look outside your own house to find the real talent. It's always going to be, there's always going to be an opportunity to develop your team, to upskill them, to provide them with new experiences. So more of provide opportunities within your team first, develop them by providing training or learning activities that can actually help them level up their current skill set. You'll actually find it refreshing and also surprising that a lot of people are willing to step outside of their comfort zones. And lastly, when it comes to transparency, mental health, and well-being. So we have to support our employees to keep them engaged, recognize that mental health is real, and provide work-life balance. So having a good core team within your company will also go a long way, because they can also become your recruitment tools. They can provide with referrals if they're having if they have a good experience with your company. Well, they will definitely be your first salespeople to actually market the different opportunities within your organization. So lastly, let's just quickly brush through the different best practices when it comes to hiring. So from sourcing to the hiring process for your recruitment activities within the year. So first, you have to identify the need. So just because one department is requesting for a position doesn't mean that you can that it automatically means that you have to shop outside. Again, you have to look into your internal team first, see if there's anything you can upskill or transfer. But if it's not, I mean, if there's nothing that you can really transfer within the team, then you can actually partner with your different hiring managers. Clearly determine what are the skills needed, what role do you need to fulfill, when do you need to get this person on board, how many do you need to fulfill the requirements, and what's your budget. If there's any misunderstandings, at least you can settle it first internally before cascading it, or before finding the talent outside. So one of the let's say main challenges of recruiters nowadays are the inconsistent communication between hiring managers and the recruiters. So we don't really want to spend 5, 6 weeks, 7 weeks, 8 weeks to like months already trying to discuss what exactly do we need. So again, we have to be on the same page when it comes to identifying what exactly you need, what you're hiring for. Next is to streamline your process. So determine who will be involved during the interview process, educate your interviewers and interviewees on the different etiquettes for conducting or attending interviews, create a timeline for the whole recruitment process, utilize different calendar invites or technology to be able to accommodate or make sure that all interviewers and interviewees will be able to attend, as well as create like different feedback sessions. It actually helps both the hiring people or the hiring managers and the HR people understand what exactly are we lacking at in terms of like the past candidates we've interviewed and how can we move forward. Next is when it comes to technology and recruitment firms. So how exactly can technology help us with recruitment? It actually fast tracks the whole process with like using the different video platforms, applicant tracking systems, and sourcing tools. So again, don't be afraid to use technology. It actually helps us a lot when it comes to profiling and filtering through like hundreds and hundreds of applications. Recruitment firms such as ourselves can also help you when it comes to doing the passive hiring, getting your brand out there, and finding you the best talent in the market. Next is when it comes to employer branding. So what do we mean by employer branding? Again, it's creating an image that showcases why you should be an employer of choice for your potential candidates. Again, be transparent, utilize your current team, your employees to share their experiences, be searchable online, provide potential candidates of like a sneak peek of what they can expect or what they can accomplish with you in your organization. Candidate experience, again, as I mentioned earlier, first impressions definitely last. So make sure you engage with them, have a smile when they enter, and have them smile when they leave. So it's really more of creating a holistic experience for your potential candidates. When it comes to flexibility in the hiring process and the benefits, be updated with the current market demand. So flexibility in terms of work arrangements have been very openly discussed nowadays. So doing like hybrid work arrangements, but if it's not possible, try to look into your current benefit package. What else can you leverage? What else can you sell to potential candidates? Be in a way, be cost effective, but at the same time, be mindful of what the market is demanding as well. So some companies can provide like, let's say, more get-togethers or training sessions or mentoring programs to be able to provide better benefit packages for their employees. Next is for the salary benchmarking. So it's very important to understand if you're still competitive within your industry. So our company actually is able to provide salary data or salary studies that companies can look into, what benefits can offset the salary or what salary can offset the benefits, we're here to help you with that. And lastly, when it comes to data protection and privacy, so it's very important to make sure that every candidate or every employee is aware that all of their information is being properly safeguarded, properly distributed, or properly destroyed whenever it's necessary. So yeah, so if you have any questions with regard to your other recruitment trends or probably advice, or if you need any manpower assistance, feel free to scan the QR code to connect with me. We're here, we're definitely here to help you guys out.
Thank you, Miss Leia, for sharing your expertise. So, for sure, our attendees had additional knowledge of the different recruitment trends and best practices. So, we will now open the floor for questions. So, if you have any questions, please type your questions in the chat box and we will address them one by one. And we already received advanced questions from our participants. So, let me read to you one by one. The first question is, our company have registered in SEC since 2021, but unable to start the business, but still planning to push through to start. Could you please give advice what is the best way, whether to register a new one or to reactivate the existing SEC registration? Is there charges about not executing the business?
Um, I'll try to answer that one. Okay, so hi, good afternoon. You may want to check the status of your company with the SEC first. If it's still marked as registered or active, because sometimes the SEC revokes licenses after a certain period of non-operation. So best to start with that. In the SEC's website, there is a way to check the status of your company. And if you need further details, you can also contact the monitoring division of the SEC. We can assist you with this. If your company is still registered, but there are matters that make it difficult to reactivate, like certain backfilings with the SEC and also with the BIR particularly, then you may also consider just closing the old company and registering a new one. This is if the registration is too far gone or if you're planning to take the business to a different direction. So that's it. Thank you.
So, thank you, Attorney Esther, for answering. So let's move on to our next question from our attendees. Do big Philippine corporations such as SM and San Miguel buy from sole proprietors, or do I need to become a one-person corporation?
Oh, okay. I can also answer that one. So there's no prohibition for big corporations like SM or San Miguel to enter into contracts with sole proprietors. But in general, they prefer to deal with corporations, including a one-person corporation, because of formalities, legal structure matters, and usually a greater ability to handle larger transactions and business risks. So if you want to register a one-person corporation, we can also assist you with this. Usually what happens is our clients start with sole proprietors and then eventually they switch to a one-person corporation.
Okay, thank you, Attorney Esther, for answering the second question. Okay, for our third question, do you have any orientation or seminar for all of your client to have business or legal documents review on what to renew or process every month, quarter, or annual?
Yeah, actually, that's a good question. It's in the pipeline. Watch out for our announcements on orientation seminars, basically like a compliance checklist for existing clients and potential clients. So, thank you.
And for our last advanced question, what are the returns pertaining to income tax, withholding tax, and GST and deadlines for the same? I think Miss Ira can answer this one. Miss Ira?
Hello. For the returns, basically, for the income tax, we are filing 1702. So we have quarterly filing and annual income tax return. And then for the withholding taxes, we have two types. So we have the withholding taxes on compensation, that's 1601C, filed every month. And we also have expanded withholding tax. So this return is being filed monthly. So the BIR form is 0619E, while for the quarterly, the BIR form is 1601EQ. All right. And for the GST, or the goods and services tax, in the Philippines, we have the 12% value added tax. This is also filed quarterly. That's BIR form 2550Q. And in terms of the deadline, maybe can we send it through the chat, or okay, I'll just for the deadline, maybe I could send it through email, but to give you a background, for the 1601C, or the monthly filing of withholding taxes, both compensation and expanded, this is filed every 10th day of the following month. And then for the quarterly, 1601EQ, this is filed on the last day of the month following the close of the quarter. So um, we also have the 2550Q, or the value added tax, and the summary list of sales and purchases every 25th day of the following month. And 60 days from the end of the quarter for 1702Q, or the quarterly income tax return. For the annual filing of the income tax return, the 1702 RT, this is filed every 15th day of the fourth month following the end of each year. Yeah, I hope I answered the question. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Miss Ira, for answering the question. So, to our attendees and participants, if you have any questions, please feel free to chat it in our chat box or raise your hand. Okay, we have here a question I think this is for Miss Annalyn. The 15 expats you mentioned for the mobile annual reports, does this need to pooling from one company, or can it be different expats from different companies?
Yeah, it can be a different from different companies. The 15 registered foreign nationals. Yeah.
Okay. Um, so if you have any additional questions, please feel free to raise your hand and we will be happy to accommodate them. I think someone raised his or her hand earlier, but I just didn't catch his or her name. Okay, Michelle. Okay, Miss Michelle, do you have any questions? Please feel free to speak now or chat it in our chat box. Okay, we have here two questions from an anonymous attendee. So the first one, in applying for a position, does HR mind if a person fails a national licensure exam but subsequently passes it?
Yeah, actually, sorry. Actually, for that part, it's not really an issue whether you failed the exam before, as long as you have the proper documentation to support that you've already passed it. So it's basically an added bonus, since majority of the HR personnel will still be looking at your skills and your background, and not just, again, not just on, the different uh educational backgrounds that you've had. So yeah, it is a huge bonus. So just make sure you add it in your profile, so at least the HR personnel will be able to count that as part of your experiences.
Thank you so much, Miss Leia, for answering the question. Another question from our anonymous attendee. Do you have a material on salary benchmarking that companies can acquire?
Um, yeah, I'll answer that one. So actually, for when it comes to the salary benchmarking, we do have a database, or data available already. But what we specifically do is more of a personalized approach for our client, wherein we also gather information like what industry are they targeting, how big are the companies they're also looking at, in comparison to, as well as the different job or unique job titles and job positions. location, and also when it comes to um like yeah the like any particular specific information that you would like to compare, so it's much more in line with what you're looking for. So it's not really like a whole report where you can just find like different positions available or different salaries available. We make it much more personalized for our client.
Dormant companies, do you need to renew your business permit or check the status first as per Attorney Esther's given
Info earlier.
earlier?
Oh, okay. Well, thanks for the question. So, as a general rule, all companies in the Philippines must renew their business permits with the LGU. But if it's related to the question a while ago, I think it's best to check the status of your company first, because if the company's license has already been revoked, essentially your company is no longer a legal entity. So if it's been non-operational for a while, it may be more prudent to check first with the SEC. I hope that helps. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Attorney Esther, for answering our attendees' question. We have here a few more questions. If we submit an affidavit of non-operations, how does this affect our taxes or fees? I think Miss Ira could answer this one. Miss Ira?
Thank you, Orly May. For this, we still need to file the tax returns required based on their BIR certificate of registration, but with zero transactions. Yeah. So we are still required to file the tax returns annually, quarterly, and monthly. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Ira. We have here another question from Miss Bernadette Militon. This is for Miss Annalyn. So expat left before annual reporting and decided not to come back. Visa is also expiring. What to do or what should we do?
If the foreign national will not be returning to the Philippines anymore, then to clear his record at the Bureau of Immigration, he needs to you need to request for the cancellation of his AEP and ACRI card. And before you can process the cancellation, you have to settle first the annual report fee. So there. By the way, the for the cancellation, they require the actual cards.
Thank you, Miss Annalyn, for answering our attendee's question. Let's move on to our next question from an anonymous attendee. Is it true that companies in restaurant or hotel sectors must collect a service charge and distribute to our service staff?
Yeah, from what I know, it's not required in the Philippines. In other jurisdictions, it's required to collect a service charge and then distribute to the staff. In the Philippines, it's not required, but if you opt to collect the service charge, then it would have to be distributed to your employees. And I think Ira has additional information on this.
Thank you, Attorney Esther. Just to complement the representation a while ago by Attorney Esther, if you opt to include this as part of the benefits of your staff in the restaurant, it should also be considered in their salaries, in the computation of the income taxes. And also, if you opt not to distribute to them, this should also be part of your other income, which will be taxable as well. Okay.
Thank you, Attorney Esther and Miss Ira, for answering our question. Let's move on to our next question. Can you provide more details on InCorp services in relation to data protection or privacy?
Yes, okay, so we do have data privacy service with InCorp. We offer registration services and consultancy services. Not all companies are required to register with the National Privacy Commission. So we can help you evaluate first if registration would be required for your company. If you want more details, please send us an email and get in touch with us, or we can also get in touch with you, but if you give us your details. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Attorney Esther. Moving on to our next question. If we shift from a for-profit corporation to non-profit How should we go about it?
Oh, okay. We would have to amend your registration with the Securities and Exchange Commission. This is under the impression that your company is already registered as a domestic corporation in the Philippines. So if it shifts from a for-profit to a non-profit and vice versa, then we would need to amend and then submit the amendment to the SEC. Thank you.
Thank you again, Attorney Esther, for answering our question. Moving on to our next question. What must employers pay every month? Pag-ibig, SSS, salary tax? I think this one could be answered by Miss May.
All right. So here in the Philippines, it's a requirement that the company acts as a withholding agent. So it is important to withhold and remit those contributions to the government every month. So for monthly payments for SSS, it is required to pay the government every end of the month. For Pag-ibig or HDMF, it's the requirement or the deadline would be based on the first letter of the company name. And for PhilHealth, it varies depending on the last digit of the PhilHealth number. For the taxes, as mentioned earlier by Ira, taxes on compensation or BIR Form 1601C is being filed or due every 10th of the following month. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Miss May. Let's move on to our next question. For the SEC requirements, what will happen if you were
Able to file the
GIS?
GIS in the prescribed time.
Okay. So if the GIS is filed late, the SEC will prescribe penalties for the late filing. But in the recent years, the SEC has been giving an amnesty for non-compliance with deadlines. So hopefully this year there will be another amnesty given. But yeah, and generally if the filing is late, penalties will be imposed. I just forgot the exact amount, but I think it ranges from about 1,000 pesos. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Esther. Moving on to our next question for Miss Leah. Can you give more examples on how we can more aggressive in tapping passive candidates aside from those mentioned?
Okay, thank you. So there's actually a lot of different ways on, doing the passive aggressive approach. So some of which would be, let's say, when it comes to doing networkings and conferences, if your company is actually registered to let's say, like a, uh, a group of companies or like a network of companies, you can actually use that as a reference point for potential candidates. There's actually a lot of tools as well available, like when it comes to LinkedIn recruiters or LinkedIn sales navigators. Recently, there has been a surge of using social media, actually joining different groups that are within the industry that we're targeting. One thing as well is leveraging alumni networking. So if you can actually attend your alumni homecoming, you can also use that as a potential starting point to find potential candidates. You can also create different events for your company, such as like this one, like seminars and webinars, where you can invite different people, connect with them, and eventually have them become part of your talent pool. And also, when it comes to doing different applicant or employee referrals, so there's actually a lot of ways that you can look into, but more or less capitalize as well in what's already available for you, such as social media, doing networking, and conferences.
Thank you so much, Miss Leah. Moving forward with our next question. For independent contractors or freelancers registered with the BIR, do they need to comply with renewal of business permit? Okay, Miss Ira.
Actually, under the Ease of Paying Taxes Act, this requirement or the annual registration form is already removed by the BIR for the existing and new registrants of businesses. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ms. Ira, for answering the question. There is another question from our attendee. Is there a record for this discussion? We are actually recording this webinar, and this will be uploaded in our YouTube account. Just search InCorp Philippines and it will just appear. Thank you. Moving on, let's move forward with the next question. For staff salaries, what are the deadline by law we must pay? Okay. Miss May?
Yeah, I think the question is similar to the one that I've answered earlier. So, the deadline for this is monthly. So for SSS, pag-ibig and PhilHealth, it's monthly, and for the taxes and compensation, it's required to be paid on the following month, every 10th of the month.
Thank you so much, Miss May, for answering the question. So if there are more additional questions, please feel free to chat it in our chat box or raise your hand. Okay. We have here new question. What happens if too much tax was withheld or if I owe additional taxes after annualization?
Yeah. If this question pertains to the payroll or salary taxes, it means so the company is responsible to pay the overwithheld taxes to the employees through a tax refund via payroll. And these overwithheld taxes will be adjusted to the BIR Form 1601C the following month by the company. And then if there are underpayment, primarily it should be deducted through your payroll, and the company should need to pay this additional taxes to the government through the BIR Form 1601C the following month again. So yeah. So all adjustments should be reflected in the BIR Form 1601C and should be paid or deducted to the employee's salary through the payroll. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Miss May. Next question. What penalties are associated with non-compliance in payroll processing? I think this will also be answered by Miss May.
Yeah, so the penalties varies depending on the violations, of course. So it depends on which compliance has been violated, depending on the regulation of each government agency. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss May. Someone is asking also if you can get a copy of our presentation of this webinar. So we will be giving you a copy of the presentation after you answer our feedback form. We will be sending you a feedback form, and once we receive your feedback, we will be sending you a copy of our presentation. So moving on to our next question. How do I know how much to withhold for taxes every month?
Miss Ira?
Well, this is depending on the type of corporation that you're in. If you are pertaining to the goods and services that you are rendering and you are part of the top corporations, for the goods, you are required to withhold 2%, while for the services, it's 1%. But if it's not, there are BIR guidelines in terms of for the salary tax. Okay. For the salary tax, this depends on um the graduated tax rates by the BIR. So depending on the range of their salary in an annual basis. So there is a tax table in in the BIR website that you can also check for the latest tax rates. Yeah.
Yeah, so just to add for the salary table, so our tax rates currently is at 0 to 35% there. So as mentioned, you can actually check it. It varies depending on the taxable income actual earned by the employee per month. Yeah, so basically you need to check the BIR or the BIR website for you to have the specific tax schedule.
Right. Next question. What is the impact of tax annualization on employees who left the company mid-year?
Yeah. Yeah. So for basically usually what happened is we recalculate the taxes of the employees based on just the total earned taxable salary from January 1 up to the mid-year. For example, if the employee separated with the company in June, so the tax will be recalculated based on January to June only. All overweight health taxes will be refunded to the final pay, and it should be reflected to the BIR form 2316, the total amount that is only due to for the separating employee.
Thank you, Ms. May, for answering. Let's move on to our last two questions for today's event. For the DOLE annual compliance report, how can we ensure compliance before submission? Do small businesses need to submit the report? What happens if our company is found non-compliant?
Yeah. So the filing of the compliance is based on the portal of the government. So there will be an error for every inaccurate encoding of the details of the company. Usually what happened is it will not push through if you encode or input invalid information using the government or the DOLE portal. Now, non-compliance, the onset, of course, it's not being, unlike with the SSS, PhilHealth, we can always check online whether the company is non-compliant or compliant. But for DOLE, it is only when the Department of Labor reach to your company and check whether your company has complied or submitted those reportorial requirements. Yeah, based on your proof, or once the DOLE asks for the proof of submission for those for those annual requirements.
Thank you, Ms. May. For our next question, can employees adjust their tax liability if they have additional deduction? For example, the tuition fees or medical expenses?
If the employees are subject to the graduated tax rates, no expenses are deducted, such as tuition or medical expenses. The only deductions that we could do for the employees are just the SSS, PhilHealth, HDMF, and other government agencies. Those required contributions. Yeah. But in terms of the expenses, we cannot. Yeah.
Okay, for our last question, for annual reporting for foreign nationals, what if I'm outside the Philippines during the reporting period? Can someone else file the report on my behalf?
Okay. For that one, the one of the requirements of the Bureau of Immigration is that the foreign national must be in the country during the annual reporting. So if you are outside the country, you can do that when you come back here in the Philippines. But if you will not be able to process your annual report within the given period, no, there will be a 200 pesos penalty for each month of delay.
Okay, we have additional question.
Oh, I just wanted to add a clarification for one of the questions regarding independent contractors or freelancers registered with the BIR. The question was, do they need to comply with the renewal of business permit? So to clarify, with the BIR, there was annual registration requirement, right? The 0605, this was mentioned by Ira, so it's no longer required. But if your business is still registered or also registered with the LGU, then you still have to renew your business permit with the LGU. I hope that helps. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Attorney Esther. So that ends our question Q&A portion. So, as we wrap up, we want to extend our gratitude to our speakers for their valuable insights and to all of you for joining today's session. We hope you found this webinar helpful in navigating business compliance for 2025. So, if you have any further questions or would like to learn more about InCorp Philippines and our services, feel free to reach out to us. Again, this is your host, Orly May Vincolado. Thank you and have a great day.